Factor number 6. No. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So as you'll know by now, or maybe you don't know, I recently bought my first property, and I bought it as an investment buy and not one to live in. So the reason I did that is because essentially I want to build up my property portfolio, and also I want to use it as a means to become financially free. So anyway, back in October when I bought this 2-bed property, I sort of showed you guys some of the steps that I took. I showed you around the house, did a little house tour and things like that, but I didn't get too much into the detail.
So when I say I didn't get too much into the detail, I mean in the sense that I didn't discuss why I wanted a house over a flat, for example, or specific other factors like location, potential to add value, tenants, etc.
So anyway, without further ado, today I'm going to be speaking to you guys about some of the key factors and things that you need to look out for when picking a good investment property. So number one thing, as a first-time buyer, as a first-time investor, when you're looking to decide on a property that you're going to purchase, you want to make sure that it sits well within your budget. I know this sounds obvious and you're probably like, well, obviously I'm not going to go and buy something that's over my budget, but you'll be so surprised by how easy it is to be swayed when you go out on the market, start viewing properties, and you see things that catch your eye because they may look beautiful, they may just look like, you know, I need it, and then you start thinking with your feelings and your emotions, and before you know it, you're thinking, oh, maybe I should put a couple grand on top of what I was budgeting to buy. No, don't do that to yourself, okay? As long as you keep looking and keeping your options open, you'll find something that sits within your budget, what you had planned for this property. So that includes not only the upfront deposit that you'll have to pay, but also your monthly mortgage repayments. Don't also forget that, let's say for example, if your budget was £200,000, just because you see houses on the market for £210,000, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily outside of your budget. And that's because when sellers put up ads for their properties, they're not necessarily putting down the price that they're expecting to receive, but what they'd ideally want for the property. So if someone's advertising a property for £210,000, you could initially offer £185,000 or £190,000, because at the end of the day, it's not uncommon for properties to sell 10, even 20k below what they were put up for in the ads, okay? So don't let that put you off. Also, when looking at properties within your budget, don't forget that there are other places outside of London, and I'm saying that to you guys who also live in London just like myself. When I was buying my property, I know the money that I had put aside for it was not necessarily for the London like waiting or for the London sort of prices and things like that. I knew that in order to get something for the amount that I had, to be able to get the kind of property that I wanted, which was in fact a house and not a flat, I knew that I'd have to step outside of London. So that's one key thing that you need to remember. When looking for houses, look outside of your immediate area. As long as the property is not too far away from where you are, it shouldn't be a problem. You're not the one that's going to be living in the property anyway. So if it's not close to where you currently live or close to your workplace or other places of interest for yourself, that's not an issue because it's an investment property, and that's what you need to remember. So number one thing, ensure that that property sits well within your budget. You're a first-time buyer. It's your first investment property. You don't want to get caught out by costs, especially ones that you had not planned for in the first place. Factor number 2 to consider when looking for a good investment property: how profitable is it? And this is rent as well as sale wise. So in terms of profitability rent wise, you need to ensure that the rent that you'll be collecting from your tenants will not only cover your monthly mortgage payments, but also any agency fees if you decide to get an agency to manage your property for you. You also need to ensure that it will cover any repair works that you need to carry out in the property or maintenance. And finally, quite importantly, you want to ensure that there's going to be some left over for you to pocket as secondary or passive income, because at the end of the day, it's an investment property. You've put this money down and bought this house because you want it to bring you money. To get a good idea of the kind of rent that you could get for the property that you're about to purchase, you want to look at other houses in the neighborhood, neighbors that also have similar properties to yours. So if you've got a 2-bed, you want to look at others that have 2 beds and how much they're renting for. That will give you a good idea of how much you can possibly rent your property for. Profitability in terms of sale. So you also want to ensure that at the point that you will go on to sell this property, that it will have increased in value to a good enough point that you'll get a good return on investment. Example, let's say you bought the property again for £200,000. You want to ensure that at the point that you're going to sell this house, you've made at least like £50,000 on top. These are 2 very important factors, or should I say one: profitability in terms of rent and also sale when going to pick up an investment property, because at the end of the day, it needs to give you a good return. Otherwise, is it really worth it? I don't know. Factor number 3, is there a good base of potential tenants? So will there be a lot of interest in the area? Do you know of people that will want to live in the house? Is it based on professionals that you think you'll get into the house? Is it based on families that you think that the house will attract? You need to do your research and find what kind of audience you are looking to appeal to. If it's professionals, have you ensured that the property is not too far away from places of work? If it's families, is it close to schools and other places of interest for families? Things like that. Although unfortunately it's one of those things you can't really help, but you don't want to be in a position where you've got a property and it's unrented for months on end. You don't want that to be you. So do your research, make sure there are tenants or potential tenants in abundance, and you'll be good. Another thing, I would advise only renting out to working professionals. Now, I know some people may think that sounds a bit harsh, but it's just the honest truth. You want to make sure that you're getting people in your property, in your first investment property as well. Don't forget that is so key. You want to make sure that you're getting people in that will be able to keep up with the monthly payments. And that is actually something that was advised to me by the letting agents that I went on to get to evaluate my property. They all said when doing their referencing and checks, they were going to make sure that the people would be working professionals, whether that be in an office or any sort of full-time, part-time job. They were going to do checks and make sure that these people could afford to keep up with the regular payments. Factor number 4 that you'll want to consider: potential to add value. Is there a lot of potential to add value to your property? So again, I'll hit you with an example. Let's say you've got a 1-bed house, or you can only afford to get a 1-bed house. How about you transforming that 1-bed house into a 2-bed house, or even a 3-bed house? How do you do that? For example, if you've got 2 lounges on a property, if it's an investment property, you don't need 2 lounges. You can change the second lounge into a bedroom. Alternatively, is there a loft? You could convert that loft into another bedroom. Another idea, how about you transform the kitchen into another bedroom? I know it sounds odd and a bit of hard work, but I'd only advise this maybe if you manage to get a property for a cheaper price and you're able to convert, again, if you've got 2 lounges, one of the lounges into an open plan sort of living kitchen area, and then you can transform the kitchen into another bedroom. There's also the possibility of adding extensions onto a property, so adding a conservatory onto the back garden. There's so many things that you could do to increase your property's value. And so when looking for a property, even if it doesn't look immediately like what you may want, think about the potential. Is there potential to do more with it? Is there potential to add more to the property so that when you do go into sell or even going out to put it up for rent, you get more for the property because you've been able to add more to it than it initially was. Factor number 5, is it in close proximity to where you live? Okay, so earlier on in the video, I did mention that when you're looking for an investment property, it doesn't have to be on your doorstep. It doesn't need to be within 30 minutes of where you currently are. And that is so true. But at the same time, you don't want your property to be too far away from you either. So when I first started looking at houses, there was a point when I was looking at Nottingham even. But then when I went to narrow in on the area that I was actually going to buy in, I scrapped that idea because I thought Nottingham is just too far. I can't easily and conveniently get to and from Nottingham because it's just too far away from where I am. I would generally advise that your investment property should be no more than 1 hour to 1 hour and a half to where you currently live. It should be accessible to you. It should be somewhere where at the last minute you're able to go and pop in and check on if needs be. Even if you're giving it to a letting agent to manage for you, at the end of the day, this is your property. This is your investment, okay? You need to be able to keep an eye on it. Factor number 6, how close is the property to public amenities? So, is there a train station nearby? Public transport easily accessible? Do you have supermarkets, shops around? Schools, parks, you know, things like that. Things that will be attractive to your potential tenants. If you're looking for professionals to rent out your property to, is there a mainline train station if they'll need to commute outside of the area to get to work? If you're looking at families, are there schools nearby? Other places of interest? You need to seriously consider this because it's so important. One of the key things that I looked out for when I was looking for my property is how close it was to the train station. So as I purchased my property outside of London, quite narrow-mindedly of me, I was focused on getting people that will be commuting outside of the area into London to work, forgetting that there are also locals who will also need places to stay that work in the area. So you just want to ensure that basically whatever market or demographic you're sort of trying to appeal to, then you need to make sure that you cater to their needs. So ensure that there are good amenities nearby. Guys, that brings me to the end of this week's video. I've spoken through 6 factors that I think are so crucial to consider when looking for a good investment property. property. If you're able to nail down all of these 6 things, I'm sure you're going to be well on your way to choosing that great first investment property. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. Please do give it a thumbs up if you have. Please do drop a comment below if you found these pointers useful. Also, please do let me know down in the comments if you feel like I've missed anything, or if you have any useful tips to add to this list of things. I definitely love to know, because as I mentioned earlier, building up my property portfolio is a dream of mine. It's something that I'm seriously working on, so I'd love to know if there's some other things that I need to factor in or consider. Next week I'm going to be back talking about houses versus flats in terms of a good investment property, whether I prefer houses or flats, and the pros and cons for both of these. So anyway, stay tuned and I will catch you next week. Bye.